Hey guys, Marsinkin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so obviously we know that part 2 of the current celebration on Global has already been teased, both in the producer letter and with some stuff starting to appear in the news in-game, advertising like new SBR stage, stuff like that. So part 2 is right around the corner. It will officially be starting on Wednesday evening if you're in the US, or Thursday morning if you're in the UK. Obviously any other time zones. A good thing about Global is, of course, once the announcements actually appear in the news, they are located to your local time, so that is very, very beneficial. But I wanted to go ahead and take a bit of a look, a bit of a preview at what is going to be coming up in this part 2 of the celebration, based on what we know so far and based on what we know from when the same sort of thing released on JP. Because remember, on JP, Kid Goku's celebration did not have a part 2. Bardock's celebration did not have a part 2. And then the Yamcha celebration, part 2 of that celebration is when this LR released. But this LR is not directly tied to that Yamcha. I think he is on the category, right? No, he's not even on the... Yeah, of course not. So... there was no real tie for when this stuff was going to come out. It's now coming out to fill the gap in between Kid Goku and the next release, which, making my estimations on what's going on in the timeline, I might make a separate video about that. But after this stuff, we should have the next Dokkan Fest, which will either be Bardock or Yamcha, depending on whether they want to go in the same order as JP. And then that celebration is likely to not have a part 2, because then it will lead directly into Saiyan Day that starts in the middle of March. So this has been moved up to fill that space between now and the next Dokkan Fest at the beginning of March. So if we go ahead and take a look at, this is the part 2 information for the celebration on JP. If we flick over to part 1, this is when the Dokkan Festival Yamcha released. I think this part of the celebration is what had the, also very unrelated to Yamcha, but the Bojack, LR Bojack EZA. So I don't think we'll see that as part of this particular part 2 that we're getting for Global. But if we switch over to this part 2, we can already see some similarities with what has been announced, right? So obviously there's going to be login bonuses and missions. They might be slightly different because at the time this released on JP, it was the end of the year. So they had things like the snowman items to trade in for treasure, which obviously is not relevant now on Global at the, you know, in the middle of February. I wonder, we might get this, although I feel like this is this was more of an end of year deal, right? The blue stone with a bunch of extra stones, so probably not going to be available. This was the snowman thing, and then yeah, same with the Dokkan Fest for the stones. This is part of the end of year celebration, so I wouldn't expect to see any of this stuff. However, we already have seen in the news today on Global that we will be getting the Super Strike revamp for the AGL Tien. So the Super Strike revamps have been a little bit hit or miss along the way. Let's have a look at this Tien. I actually can't even remember what he does. So he raises defense in 1 turn on super lowers attack. He gets key and some attack and defense. He gets additional attack and defense and chance of performing a crit per Earthbred Fighters, which is the name of warriors raised on Earth for Global, which I really do not like. Ally attacking in the same turn. Okay, so if you have the 2 other allies, he's getting an extra 100% to stats. And some crit chance, pretty good. Additional attack 50% when facing 1 enemy. Additional defense 50% when facing 2 enemies. Medium chance of stunning all enemies. So that's that start of turn like Jiren or Hearts effect. And then additional attack, defense, and chance to crit 30% when the enemy is stunned. So he definitely could have some use for Super Battle Road. Although I feel like a lot of the teams that he's on, those stages are already out, right? So I guess Bond of Friendship still needs one. Warriors Raised on Earth will eventually get one. So he seems like he could be pretty decent for a free-to-play unit, but his biggest issue is always going to be things like the links and everything, right? Like he's got Golden Z Fighter, for example, Dodon Ray. So not exactly the best links, but as far as the Super Strike revamps go, he looks like he is at least in the top half, right? Because some of them have been pretty bad. And remember, of course, it's always worth doing these Super Strike revamps because they give you quite a few stones from completing the whole process, even if you are not going to use the unit. So we already know this is coming. More quest stages. Now, we just got more stages added to Area 29 on Global, so I wouldn't be surprised if this does not come. And then we got the second burst mode. Now, the fact that the Bojack event was the one chosen for the burst mode, you could argue that that is tied into the fact that LR Bojack got his Easy A in part 1 of that celebration. So this one is kind of up in the air, right, as to whether we will get this or not. Now, the burst mode itself, you know, it doesn't require you to have LR Bojack. You don't get like any of the medals to Easy A him or anything like that from doing this event. He has a normal Extreme Z battle. So this doesn't have to be directly tied to the release of the LR Bojack Easy A, but there is a part of me, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get this. I hope we do, because any extra content is always good. If we take a look at the burst mode for Bojack, the actual burst mode page doesn't have the specifics. I think it's on the Bojack event. Yeah, if we go down here, so burst mode info, so you get the burst coins, which you can use to unlock the OSTs for like the profile and everything. Not exactly a crazy feature, I'm not super like hyped about it, but burst mode itself is kind of cool, having this like super hard difficulty level that you can add to an event, and it being a Dokkan event rather than a random story event, I think is pretty cool. It'll be interesting to take some different teams into this and see how good it will actually be, because the missions, in terms of getting the highest score, you want to run a Connected Hopes team. There's also one for Space Traveling Warriors, but that gives you like half the points. And then when we look at the modifiers, the most points are from int or STR. So essentially, if you can run a full int or STR Connected Hopes team, that's going to be the way to get the most possible points in one go. And then, of course, there's all these typical buffs that the previous one had, where you're just massively buffing the enemy's abilities and their stats, making your characters get less ki, having your units be able to be locked, which is incredibly annoying, and then no items and no support memories as well. So I think this will be pretty interesting. There are missions for doing the Connected Hope and the Space Traveling Warriors one, so even if you set a high score with this, you obviously want to do the Space Traveling Warriors one anyway. So you get a few decent rewards out of this. Not everyone may enjoy it, but I think the idea of having this super hard event modifier, I think, is pretty cool. I might go into it with all of these things set for the enemy stats, and then just take in some of the random different fun teams and see how well they do, rather than focusing on actually getting the top score. So I do hope we get that, but it could be tied to the Bojack. And then as we scroll down, we obviously just have the usual, like a bunch of Easy A's and stuff returning. And then as we get further down, we have everyone's favorite game mode, Explosive Chain Battle, with the Explosive Chain Battle versus Hachiyak. Now, again, the LR that is releasing, the STR Carnival Goku, is related to the Hachiyak OVA. But remember, there is also a Battlefield LR Hachiyak, which I think he is the next one that needs to be added to the shop for Global, so I wonder if that will come along with this celebration as well, because it doesn't get mentioned in the news, because it's not like its own separate event or anything. But the Chain Battle versus Hachiyak is obviously more for the summonable unit itself, right? The Battle of Wits Carnival Goku. So we should get this even if we don't get the Battlefield LR Hachiyak. So if we take a look at the Hachiyak Chain Battle, the advantageous categories are Super Saiyans, Bond of Parent and Child, and Giant Ape Power. So when you look at the advantageous characters, the extreme side is kind of lacking over here, right? We got Great Ape Vegeta, Martian Vegeta, Great Ape Turles, Great Ape Raditz, Great Ape Nappa. Yeah, that's basically it. So, not great. The super class side, obviously, going to be pretty much all Super Saiyan Gokus, and you're going to be able to have very good team synergy with that. The extreme side, probably going to be a little bit more difficult. This is where having those big whale friends for chain battles going to come in handy with people that have versions of like the unawakened versions of like Vegeta and Turles and Raditz and stuff like that. So I can see the extreme side of this being a little bit annoying. The super side should be pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you pull the new LR, I believe they are the most advantageous attacking character So this is going to be obviously a lot easier if you do get the new unit. But even if you don't, full Super Saiyan Gokus is going to be the way to go, which is a pretty easy team to build when it comes to chain battle. So if we go back, I think that's the last of the stuff. What's actually funny, I just noticed, let me go back to the top. So part 2, yeah, even mentions here, Divine Dragon Carnival, the new Goku will appear. There's no entry for the banner. There's no, where's the bit that says like Dragon Carnival? It's not on here. So this is the banner. I'm going to make a separate video talking about summon or skip for this for global, obviously based on, you know, what we know is coming up and things like that. Carnival banners are a little bit better than yellow coin banners because they have a couple of other featured LRs and they are double rates. But obviously, you know, this banner has some pretty bad featured units. It does have STR Piccolo, which is good. This Trunks can still kind of hold his own a little bit in some content as a Hybrid Saiyan support unit. Everybody else on the banner, well, actually, the Trunks, Goten, and 18 with their EZAs are actually still fairly decent. But as always with these kind of banners, not exactly great. But double rates, you get a Kai per multi. Global should get tickets as well. But again, I will do a separate video all about that. So that is everything that we should expect to see in part 2. Like I said, the only things that will be a little bit up in the air as to whether we get them or not is the burst mode for Bojack. I don't think we'll get more quest stages this early, although we might. And everything else, a lot of the stuff like these sales and the redstone and everything were tied to the end of year celebration that was going on JP at the time that this came out. So a few things going on in part 2, nothing too crazy. Obviously there's no listing I think on this page for a new SBR stage coming out, but we've already seen in the news that we are getting a new Extreme Super Battle Road stage, which I believe is Super Saiyans. So we'll do a team building guide for that. So let me know what you guys think of the upcoming part 2. What are you most excited about? Are you going to be summoning for the Carnival Goku? Are you going to be trying out burst mode if we do indeed get it? Let me know all of your thoughts down below for what we can see in part 2 of this celebration. And who do you think is coming up next? Is it going to be Bardock or is it going to be Yamcha? So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Master Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.